Shalom. As we recall, Moshe gets drawn from the river Nile and gets raised in Pharaoh's palace by Pharaoh's daughter. We know very, very little about Moshe's early life. We do know that he lived in the palace, but the rest is up to speculation. There's no black letter text that explains what exactly happened, or how he lived, or how he was raised. But there is a lot of speculation, and therefore I will speculate for a moment. Let's imagine the life of this child. He's already spent 3 months being hidden as an infant, having to be quiet, having to be under wraps. What an unbelievable amount of stress for a young baby. And now he's thrusted into a foreign household, a household of royalty. We don't know whether he was in line to be the Pharaoh. We don't know what his siblings thought of him. I can speculate, though, that there was a lot of intrigue and that for the most part he was known to be a Hebrew. We do know that throughout his life he was, as I say, slow of tongue, that he had a very debilitating speech impediment. And if you roll all of the things in his upbringing, the infant being hidden, the foreign household, the intrigue of royalty, the being a member of the ethnic group that outside is being enslaved, what effect that would have had on his siblings and his family upon how they looked upon him, and how indeed he looked at himself, seeing his kinfolk being mistreated by his adopted family. It's a nearly impossible situation, but yet he is alive. You might even imagine that somewhere down the road he might have indeed had some sort of survivor's guilt. However, the Torah text does pick up when he is perhaps a young man. And Moshe is walking through the quarry where the slaves are, and he sees an Egyptian overseer beating upon a slave. He walks up to them. He looks this way and he looks that way. He looks all around to make sure that no one is around to witness what he's about to do, and he strikes the Egyptian and then buries the body in the sand. Well, the next day, Moshe is walking through that same quarry where the slaves are, and he sees 2 slaves having a fighting each other. And he walks up to them and says, "You stop that." Well, one of the slaves turns to him and says, "What are you going to do? Are you going to kill us like you killed the Egyptian?" Well, he's been outed. Any hope he's had of keeping it secret what he did the day before is now a fantasy. So he runs. He runs perhaps because he's fearful of his life. He runs perhaps because he's had enough of seeing his kinfolk being enslaved. But runs he does. He makes his own escape. He runs into the desert. He runs across the desert. He must have been a very puzzling sight to anyone who saw him, a solitary ex-royal figure going across the desert. Well, one day, after traveling for many days, I imagine, he comes upon a well, a gathering place, where people come, as you would think, in a desert, to where the water is. And there he sees a group of young girls attempting to get water for their sheep. They're having some trouble, you see, because there's a group of men who are hassling them. And Moshe comes to them, the men, and drives them away. Well, the girls run off to their home, their tent, and they tell their father, their Abba, of what happened. That there was this strange man. The strange man, we were trying to get water. The strange man came and helped us and drove away men who were hassling us. Well, their Abba, their father, says, bring this man over so we can welcome him, so we can thank him. And Moshe goes to this tent and sees the man, the father of these girls. This man, his name is Yitro. This man who is the high priest of the local tribe. This man who is also a shepherd. This man who is very grateful to this strange person who speaks strangely, speaks very little, and looks even stranger. And as part of his gratitude towards him, he sets him up in a job to help him. He gives him the job of becoming a shepherd with him. He also gives him his eldest daughter, Zipporah, as a wife. This stranger from across the desert must have seemed very strange to Zipporah, looking as he did, speaking as little as he did. A man with a past. And that is where Moshe started a family. Tending the sheep, living the quiet life. Quite happily, I would imagine. Except for those memories that kept on haunting him. Maybe at night, maybe in dreams. But at least during the day he could be with his wife, and he could be raising a family and looking after the sheep. And the past can stay in the past. Or so he thought.